I wrote the words, hate the song. I just don't think it's very good musically. I don't think it's much of a melody.
In the sophisticated realm of
At 76 years old, Billy Joel has nothing left to prove. He sold over 160 million records, played Madison Square Garden more than any other artist in history, and shaped the sound of American pop rock for half a century. But now, in a series of surprisingly candid moments, the man known as the Piano Man is pulling no punches. In a recent interview, Joel casually revealed that he's never been a big fan of one of the Beatles' most iconic albums, and that's just the beginning. With each new revelation, the music world is left stunned, asking the same question. Who else has Billy Joel quietly disliked all this time? Could it be true that behind the hitmaker's famously diplomatic persona lies a sharper, unfiltered taste, and maybe even resentment toward a few of his contemporaries? As fans scrabble to make sense of his comments, some of which border on outright dismissal, one thing is clear. Billy Joel is finally saying what he really thinks, and not everyone will be happy to hear it. In a moment that startled die-hard Beatles fans around the world, Billy Joel recently admitted he's never been particularly fond of what many consider one of the greatest albums of all time, the White Album. Speaking on Club Random, comedian Bill Maher's podcast, Joel didn't hold back. He described the album as sounding like a band falling apart, calling it incomplete and lacking cohesion. "I didn't get it," he said bluntly, adding that many of the songs felt like unfinished ideas rather than polished works. He speculated that the band may have been under the influence of drugs or personal tensions at the time, suggesting the legendary group had, in his view, lost focus during its production. Coming from a musician who built his career on tight songwriting and narrative-driven compositions, the critique wasn't entirely out of character, but it was deeply unexpected. Joel has often acknowledged the Beatles as formative to his musical upbringing, and for decades he praised their early influence. But now, with age and honesty on his side, he's pulling back the curtain and calling it like he sees it. For fans of the White Album, his comments may feel like sacrilege. For others, it's a rare glimpse into how even musical legends have their own deeply personal hierarchies of taste, and Billy Joel just dared to speak his out loud. For years, fans and critics alike have lumped Billy Joel and Elton John together, two piano legends, both chart-topping showmen, both with a flair for melody and emotional ballads. Their joint tours in the 90s and early 2000s were record-breaking, drawing massive crowds and uniting two musical powerhouses on a single stage. But according to Billy Joel himself, that comparison, and especially the partnership, was never something he fully embraced. In multiple interviews, Joel has confessed that he grew uncomfortable with being endlessly compared to Elton, not out of ego, but because he felt the contrast diminished his own musical identity. "It was like we were being packaged as a duo," he once said, adding that the experience began to feel like an artistic cage rather than a collaboration. Things took a darker turn when Elton publicly criticized Joel for allegedly drinking too much and skipping rehab, comments Joel later called inappropriate. The tension simmered quietly for years, never erupting into open hostility, but always lingering beneath the surface. Joel has since described working with Elton's band as a terrible idea, suggesting the partnership diluted his sound rather than enhanced it. While he still speaks respectfully of Elton's talent, it's clear that the endless comparisons left a bitter aftertaste. In the end, it wasn't just about two stars sharing a stage, it was about one of them trying to hold on to his own name while constantly being measured against another. For years, fans and critics alike have lumped Billy Joel and Elton John together, two piano legends, both chart-topping showmen, both with a flair for melody and emotional ballads. Their joint tours in the 90s and early 2000s were record-breaking, drawing massive crowds and uniting two musical powerhouses on a single stage. But according to Billy Joel himself, that comparison, and especially the partnership, was never something he fully embraced. In multiple interviews, Joel has confessed that he grew uncomfortable with being endlessly compared to Elton, not out of ego, but because he felt the contrast diminished his own musical identity. "It was like we were being packaged as a duo," he once said, adding that the experience began to feel like an artistic cage rather than a collaboration. Things took a darker turn when Elton publicly criticized Joel for allegedly drinking too much and skipping rehab, comments Joel later called inappropriate. The tension simmered quietly for years, never erupting into open hostility, but always lingering beneath the surface. Joel has since described working with Elton's band as a terrible idea, suggesting the partnership diluted his sound rather than enhanced it. While he still speaks respectfully of Elton's talent, it's clear that the endless comparisons left a bitter aftertaste. In the end, it wasn't just about two stars sharing a stage. It was about one of them trying to hold on to his own name while constantly being measured against another. While Billy Joel has only publicly named a few artists or albums he personally doesn't connect with, the internet has long buzzed with speculation about which bands the Piano Man quietly can't stand. Though he rarely names names, fans and music insiders have pointed to subtle clues in interviews over the years, slight digs, dismissive phrasing, or even strategic silence when asked about other major acts. One recurring rumor is that Joel has never been fond of progressive rock groups like Yes or Genesis, genres he's hinted at finding overly indulgent. In past interviews, he's also made sly remarks about artists who favor complex arrangements over emotional storytelling, suggesting he values clarity and melody above technical exhibition. Some fans even believe that Joel has a distaste for punk rock entirely, viewing it as reactionary and anti-musicianship, a theory loosely supported by his lack of engagement with the movement during the 70s and 80s. Others think his criticisms of the White Album were part of a broader critique of bands that lose cohesion in the name of experimentation. Of course, these interpretations remain unconfirmed, and Joel himself has never gone on record listing a top 6 of bands he hated. But in an age where every offhand comment is magnified into a headline, even a raised eyebrow can spark theories. And while Billy Joel has mastered the art of discretion, one thing is becoming clear. He has musical boundaries, and some iconic bands may have crossed them without ever knowing. At 76 years old, Billy Joel has reached a rare and sacred status in the music world. He no longer has to prove anything to anyone. His legacy is not only intact, it's untouchable. With over 5 decades of hits, anthems etched into pop culture, and a permanent residency at Madison Square Garden that will likely go down in history, Joel has earned the right to speak without a filter. And that's exactly what he seems to be doing lately. In recent interviews, fans have noticed a shift in tone, less guarded, more reflective, and occasionally sharp. He's revisiting old grudges, reevaluating past collaborations, and even questioning the worship of albums he once stayed silent about. Some say this newfound honesty is simply the confidence of age. Others believe it may be connected to his recent health diagnosis. In mid-2025, Joel publicly revealed he's been battling normal pressure hydrocephalus, a rare condition that can affect memory, balance, and cognition. Though not life-threatening if treated, it's a sobering reminder of mortality, even for someone who's long seemed invincible on stage. Perhaps facing time's passage has unlocked something in Billy, a desire to set the record straight, to unburden himself from decades of playing nice. Whatever the cause, fans are seeing a different side of the legend now. He's no longer just the voice behind Uptown Girl or New York State of Mind. He's a man taking full ownership of his story, warts, wounds, opinions, and all.
When a musical icon like Billy Joel starts sharing unfiltered opinions, the internet doesn't just listen, it explodes. His recent remarks about the Beatles' White Album and his complicated history with Elton John sparked waves of reactions, ranging from respectful disagreement to outright outrage. Beatles loyalists were quick to defend the album as a masterpiece of creative freedom, accusing Joel of being out of touch or overly critical. "Imagine calling Blackbird and While My Guitar Gently Weeps unfinished," one fan tweeted, igniting a thread that stretched into the thousands. Meanwhile, Elton John's diehard followers resurfaced old interviews, reigniting debates about whose tours were more successful, whose catalog holds up better, and who really carried their joint shows. And then there were Joel's own fans, many of whom found his honesty refreshing, even admirable. "He's earned the right to say what he wants," wrote one longtime listener, while another commented, "Billy's just being real. We need more of that." Music journalists were quick to dissect the comments, framing them as a late career pivot toward brutal authenticity. But not all the coverage was kind. Some accused him of stirring drama for relevance, while others labeled it bitterness masked as critique. Through it all, Joel remained calm, never walking back his words, never taking the bait. As one observer put it, he's not trying to start fights, he's just finally stopped pretending. And whether people loved it or hated it, they were talking about Billy Joel again, not just for the songs, but for the fire still burning behind them. In the end, the story isn't really about which 6 bands Billy Joel hates, or whether he ever truly hated any at all. It's about what happens when an artist with nothing left to prove finally allows himself to speak without a script. After decades of staying diplomatic, letting the music speak for itself, Billy Joel is peeling back the curtain, not to attack, but to be honest. And honesty, especially from legends, is a rare gift in a world obsessed with curated perfection. Whether it's his critique of the Beatles' White Album, his unease with Elton John comparisons, or the rumored disdain for certain genres, Joel's reflections aren't designed to burn bridges. They're windows into a mind shaped by half a century of songwriting, touring, and surviving the chaos of fame. The man who once wrote, "I don't care what you say anymore, this is my life," seems to finally be living those words out loud. And as fans and critics debate his every word, one thing becomes undeniable. Billy Joel's voice still carries weight, not just in melody, but in meaning. He may be 76, but he's proving that legacy isn't just about what you create, it's also about the courage to tell the truth before the curtain falls.